Pardon the interruption, but I'm Mike Wilbon. Tony, Richard Sherman said today he has never made it rain at a strip club.
I'm Tony Kornheiser. In related news, Richard Sherman has never hung out with me,
Whoa!
kids. Go.
Man, look at people come off that pole.
How great was that?
That's pretty good.
Love that.
You know, you've been hanging out in some places. You've been spending some time in Atlanta lately?
I got to gather some of these because some of them were 50s and not just one. Sort of important. Welcome to PTI, boys and girls. In today's episode, Richard Sherman backs off, Kevin Durant goes off, and Lala sounds off on Carmelo's future. But we begin today with your school, Wilbon, Northwestern University. The football players have announced their intention to organize themselves as a union. Though their short-term goals do not specify this, it seems reasonable to expect such a union to negotiate salaries for the players. The NCAA is against this, saying college athletes are not employees. It sounds like the NCAA plans a legal fight. Wilbon, who do you think has the stronger case?
I'm biased. I went to Northwestern. I've talked to these players, including Kane Coulter, the quarterback, and the person you're often going to see as a spokesperson for this. I've talked with them about this for months as they've been building this, and I believe in what the players believe, that when you work, and I mean work, when you are 40 hours a week or so under supervision and great structure with coaches, an athletic department, and a university hierarchy above that, you're working. You're an employee. That is my definition. If it's my definition, but it's not about my definition or even theirs. It's about the courts and what they decide that relationship is. And, Tony, we could be looking at something groundbreaking here. I think this is a major story.
I think it's a major story. I think this is the first shot fired in something that's going to last for a very long time. And I think probably what will happen is there will be compromise before there is an actual solution that either side wants. But I mean, if I looked at scholarship athletes at big-time schools in football and basketball, I'm inclined to believe on first glance that they are employees, that everything they do enriches the school and not necessarily
and that's a great part, too.
But here's where it gets muddy for me, because they also have access to academics that other people don't have. They have access to everything that the school has to offer, and therefore I am not certain that they are employees. I think Northwestern's position in this is interesting. I believe the athletic director has already come out and said that supports the students, but, and you say but because you're a member of the Big Ten and you're a member of the NCAA, but Northwestern...
And you'd also be a member of management.
Northwestern does not believe that they are indeed employees, and I think Northwestern has to take that position.
They have to. But they have to. But as we disclose here, you know, I'm a trustee of the university, of Northwestern University. So I haven't even thought about what that means and what position I ought to take, because I take the position I do because I've spent my life around sports. And I know what happens in practice and after practice and how much these kids work, practice, study, are hurt, injured, spend time in recovery and rehab.
Right.
Tony, it's a full-time job. Yeah. By any definition, to me.
You know what?
So I support I support the academic exercise of pursuing this.
So is another full-time job is when you pre-med. And you have all those labs and you have all those studies and you have your eye on medical school in the way the football players maybe have their eyes on playing in the pros. A university, its job is to nurture the instinct in a student to go out and think for himself. Northwestern players are thinking for themselves, but they are in conflict with the structure of the university.
In conflict.
Down the road, you know where I think this is going. Down the road, I think the NCAA dissolves and the big-time schools pay their players.
Probably right, Tony. All right. I need a Richard Sherman fix. So here we go, Tone. He writes for the mmqb.com today that he should not have attacked Michael Crabtree personally, that someone tweeted him this quote after the NFC title game, quote, "No one has ever made himself great by showing how small someone else is," close quote. Who said that, Tone?
I believe it was Shefty.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
And Sherman says he completely agrees now and adds, quote, "I shouldn't have attacked Michael Crabtree the way I did," close quote. Tone, what then do you make of this 180-degree spin move by Mr. Sherman?
You know, I like Richard Sherman. I would have felt a lot better in this case if he had personally apologized publicly to Michael Crabtree. Not saying I shouldn't have attacked Michael Crabtree, but have said, Michael Crabtree, I was wrong. You need to hear this, because he built everything stepping on the back,
attacking him personally,
of Michael Crabtree. And when given the opportunity to recant after the game and in days after, he said, no, he's a mediocre receiver, he's a sorry receiver. So he didn't do that. Why do I think he does this? Because I can see, and you can see, the McDonald's ad in the future with Michael Crabtree and Richard Sherman. He says, I'll buy you a Happy Meal and we all square here, or something like that. Sure.
I'm not going to be that cynical about it. I agree with what you say, by the way, about just at least let us know you called Michael or tweeted him. There's a million ways. Facebooked him. Whatever you have. Instagram. There's a million ways to reach somebody.
At one point he has to say, Mike.
Mike. I should know. Right. Okay. But okay, let's get past that for a second. You and I have not only attacked people, we've attacked teams and institutions and things like that.
Yeah.
And after consulting with people who know about these things, maybe more than we do,
you change your mind.
You come back and you say, we have written columns that say, you know what? I was wrong about this. I changed my mind.
Yeah.
And so I'm okay with Michael Crabtree doing it. Say, hey, by the way, he wrote it too. He writes his own column. How impressive is that? By the way, we know you can write a column. Can you tip a ball back to a teammate in the end zone for the NFC title game?
No, I can't do any of those things. But when he's my age, let's see if he can do that. Let's see when Richard Sherman can do that. We are both inclined to like Richard Sherman. And I think what this is now doing is Richard Sherman taking a step back and saying, I'm going to clean myself up so people think that I'm charming, because I know I am charming, and I'm going to let them know that I can admit mistakes, and let's move on and show me the money.
Well, I knew you'd get back to show me the money.
What, was that wrong?
No.
How many guys on that side of the ball get the money?
You just showed us the money at the top of the show.
Recent comments by Roger Goodell and then yesterday by Pete Carroll seem to indicate an openness towards the concept of using medical marijuana to manage pain for NFL players. Carroll seemed closer to this than Goodell, saying, quote, we have to explore and find ways to make our game a better game and take care of our players in whatever way possible. Regardless of what other stigmas might be involved, we have to do this because the world of medicine is doing this, unquote. Wilbon, are you surprised at this NFL openness?
Well, I don't call it NFL openness. That's Pete Carroll being open, and Pete Carroll's that kind of guy.
Roger Goodell didn't slam the door?
No, he didn't slam the door, but you're going to have to do more than that. Look, Tony, if this is what modern medicine is saying and all of its attempts to advance, if the NFL's number one agenda, and make no mistake, the number one agenda of the NFL in the past 5 years has been player safety, and if you carry that out,
other than making money.
Health, other than making money.
Yeah.
Thank you. Health.
I mean, I'm cynical about everything.
You're right. That's
okay.
Yeah, that's fair. Right. But health. Then we're going to ignore what advances science. You know, I was at my aunt's 100th birthday party on Saturday.
She looked hot.
Thank you. I'll tell her that. I'll pass that along. And in 1914, when she was born, you could apparently go and just get marijuana and cocaine over the counter.
Those were not illegal.
So we have, I don't know, changes in the culture, and maybe we're looking at one of them.
Yeah. There's a bunch of things at play here, and player safety is very important, and lawsuits are very important. The NFL can't be on the side of not helping players who've been injured through playing football. And if medical marijuana can ease their pain and manage their pain, the NFL has to be supportive of that.
Sure.
The interesting thing here is the two teams in the Super Bowl represent states, the only two states in the union, which at the moment have legalized recreational marijuana. And that's Colorado and Washington State.
Yeah.
NFL players, as residents there, can use this, but they are tested for it in the NFL. And if they flunk the test, they can be suspended. The NFL is going to have to come to grips with this. There are two huge cultural forces at work in this country right now that nobody expected 30 years ago. Same-sex marriage and a legalization of marijuana. Yeah. And it's moving so fast that you better be on the side of the angels.
And no matter how big and dominant you are as an institution, you still have to be in step with the rest of the culture.
How many lawsuits can the NFL afford? You have to take care of your injured players.
I want to go that way in this direction. We go from medicinal to plain old sick, Tone.
Oof.
Get that?
Yeah.
Kevin Durant's roll continued last night. He scored 41 to lead OKC past the Hawks. That's 8 straight for the Thunder, but it's the 9th game. A whole lot more of us are going to be interested in. OKC at Miami tomorrow night. Tone, what significance, if any, will there be if KD outplays LeBron in that game?
There are moments when MVP awards are won. Small moments, the swing of a bat, a certain series, a certain game. I remember, I think it was 1999, Chipper Jones. The Mets and the Braves were involved in a pennant race, and Chipper Jones in a 3-game series hit 4 home runs and drove in 7 runs. The Mets,
that was later, though. That was like with a month left in the season. We're only halfway.
Well, I understand that, but at that moment, Chipper Jones won the MVP. If you're asking me about this particular game, no matter when it is, I'm going to say this because it's not like in baseball where you have 3-game series and 4-game series. You get one shot. You cross conferences, you get one shot here and one shot there. If on the road, Kevin Durant outscores LeBron James and his team wins that game, I believe he becomes the wide-angle front runner for MVP.
I had not thought of that theory. I'm going to be honest with you. My first response is it means nothing because Kevin Durant is something like, 3-14 against LeBron James. And, if he goes 4-14 or 4-13, it doesn't matter because these two, what matters to them now, they're big enough where what matters happens in June.
Time and space matters. If this is the game that everybody wants to watch.
And if it somehow convinces OKC's own players that they can beat Miami, maybe that changes.
Let me lay out a case. I'm going to go to the glasses to lay out a case. Oklahoma City is without a great player, Russell Westbrook, so Kevin Durant has to do more. In the harder conference, they are 36-10. LeBron James is often without a great player, Dwayne Wade, so he and Chris Bosh have to do more. And in the weaker conference, they are 32-12. That's a case I would make to get you to vote for Kevin Durant.
You can make that. You don't have to make it
even if I think the other guy's better.
That's the easy case. Kevin, what he's done without Russell Westbrook in the tougher conference is more impressive at this point.
You know these guys, both of them, well. Don't you think they're coming out like Frazier and Ali tomorrow night?
I think so.
Don't you think it's personal?
No. I think personal in this
way.
They want to impress. They want to show the other. Yeah. But they are not enemies.
No.
There's not enmity there. I'm just saying, LeBron had a couple of little shots, and I asked him Sunday, I thought you were joking. He said, I can't give Kevin a little shot, and he smiled. I think it's good-natured. I don't think it's like Ali Frazier.
You know how many games I watch in a regular season.
You're going to watch this
Not that many. I'm going to watch this.
Worth watching.
Carmelo Anthony's wife, Lala Vasquez Anthony, went on Bravo's Watch What Happens Live, easy for me to say, and said, quote, I definitely think he will stay. I know he wants to stay, and I support him wherever he wants to go, unquote. Wilbon, should Knicks fans trust this?
Which part of it? I think he's going to stay, or I trust him wherever he wants to go. These are two very different things. I think Knicks fans shouldn't trust anything, and we should not pay attention to any of this because you get to the end of a season, and as I said to you yesterday, the Knicks can get to a place, suppose they finish 6th in the conference. I know right now I think they're 8th, and they beat the 3rd seed and they advance to the next round. Everything's going to feel real good in New York with the Knicks.
That's right.
But suppose the Knicks either miss the playoffs, so they finish 8th and they get crushed by Indiana, or 7th and they get crushed by Miami in the first round. He could be out of there. I don't care what anybody says right now.
I don't want to disparage Carmelo Anthony's
wife.
I'm
not going to do that either.
I'm sure she means well.
Yeah.
And, but it's a 50-50 chance that this will happen or this won't happen, because after the season, Carmelo Anthony's going to sit down and he's going to have more input.
People are going to come with interest and dollars.
Right. And where I am on this is that he's going to be 30 years old in May.
Yeah.
Right? And
you think he cannot win in New York?
I don't think ownership and the team as constituted now gives him any chance to win within the next 2 to 3 years.
Well, he says, all I want to do right now is win a championship.
Well, can the Knicks win a championship now?
No, not as constructed.
Okay.
And I don't think they can both pay him and reconstruct the team. Then they can't do that.
I think he wants to win a championship, and he's going to say to any prospective team out there, I can give you 25 points a game every game.
You know this is the new Dwight Howard, which is the old Carmelo Anthony story. We're going to talk about this every week from now until July.
Let us take a break. But coming up, will Peyton Manning challenge Richard Sherman on Sunday? We're going to ask Bill Polian.
And later, your Brooklyn Nets, they gave away a game last night, Tony.
Now they're my Brooklyn Nets? I thought they were my New York Knicks.
Well,
I thought I was Manhattan.
You got to take credit.
What? Bill Polian has won the Grey Cup and the Super Bowl. What a show-off.
Absolutely.
We welcome Bill Polian to the show, and we ask you to put on your general manager hat. Richard Sherman seems to be backing away from his comments about Crabtree. How would you as a GM have handled Richard Sherman? Would you have told him to zip it up this week?
Well, not zip it up. Just tell him this is a much larger audience than you're used to, and everything you say gets magnified by an order of about 1 million. So just make sure that you keep the remarks at a very low level, and then everything will be fine. He's going to do his talking. That's fine. Nothing wrong with that. But just remember what kind of a stage you're on.
Well, as long as we're talking about Richard Sherman, let's advance this a little bit, Bill, to Sunday evening. Do you believe ultimately that Peyton Manning is going to avoid Richard Sherman, as so many quarterbacks seem to have, or do you believe there's a chance that Peyton will go right after him?
I think it will depend on how the Seahawks match him. Do they match him against the tight end, Thomas? If so, I think Peyton will test him. If they match him against Demaryius Thomas, and they frequently match him, by the way, depending on, it doesn't depend on what other coverage they play. They'll match him one-on-one very frequently. It depends on who they try to take away. If they put him on Demaryius Thomas, I think Peyton will be inclined to go other places. But this game, there are a number of X factors in this game, and the matchup of Sherman and which wide receiver is a big one to watch.
Well, let's ask about this as well. You have seen Peyton Manning, of course, be great in all sorts of circumstances. And now there's going to be allegedly a 10 to 15 mile per hour wind out at the Giants Stadium. Do you see this as being any kind of problem at all for Peyton and the way he throws, his arm strength as it exists now, Bill?
I do. I don't think it's an arm strength issue. I think all quarterbacks hate the wind. And of all of the weather conditions, the X factor Sunday night is there are two things: sleet, which I think the forecast tells us will have passed by, and wind. And if this wind is going to be in the 22 to 25 mile an hour range, which is what they're predicting today, it will have an effect on the game. And maybe for both quarterbacks, but certainly for a precision passer like Peyton, when the ball goes into very small windows. Witness that throw in the end zone a couple of weeks ago in the divisional championship game where he just stuck it in there by inches. The wind will play havoc with that.
Yeah, when you watch Peyton lately, that's sometimes what you see. The ball, Bill, seems to hang up there like the moon. And you say to yourself, well, 10 guys can get this ball, and yet it ends up in his receiver's hands. When you watch something like that, does your heart skip a beat? Because you think, come on, ball, get down somewhere.
Well, sometimes it does, but I know exactly what he's thinking, and the timing of the release and the timing of the delivery is what makes that successful. He sees the receiver open before the receiver actually gets open, and he times it in such a way that the ball gets there before the defenders can, even though it might wobble or it might look like it doesn't have a lot of oomph on it. He gets it there in plenty of time. But again, the wind can play a factor with that timing.
All right, Bill, we'll get you out of here on this. We couldn't possibly let you leave without telling us who you're leaning towards actually in the Super Bowl.
Well, my heart is leaning much toward Denver because in this league you root for your friends, and Peyton Manning's my friend. While I respect the Seahawks greatly, as they say, you know, blood's thicker than water, and we were together for 14 years. However, I will say this. Every metric, points allowed, points in the red zone, total defense, turnover margin, running the ball more than your opponent, not number of yards, but number of rushes, all point toward the Seahawks. So if the Broncos are to win, they're going to have to buck very strong metrics, which indicate that about 90% certainty that the Seahawks would win. And secondly, what looks like it may be bad weather conditions if, in fact, there is that wind. Is Peyton Manning and the Broncos, are they capable of doing that? Yes, that's where my heart is. But I got to tell you that all of the signposts indicate Seahawks.
Thank you so much, as
Bill.
always, Bill, for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're taking a break. When we come back, LeBron wants to meet with the new NBA commish.
Commish should want to meet with LeBron. Plus, the Cowboys make a hire. Floyd Mayweather reportedly makes a big Super Bowl bet. I bet it's not on the weather.
Now, we hear about Floyd Mayweather bets all the time.
They're huge.
Well, they are said to be
They're
huge.
said to be.
At the time, people, happy 65th birthday, Greg Popovich. Popovich is the longest tenured coach with the same team in any of our major pro sports. This year, his Spurs are a remarkable 32-1 against all bottom feeders. But they are 1-10 against the other top 7 teams in the NBA, and they play one of them at Houston tonight.
That could be must-see TV. It's kind of a ball night, Tom, if you have them. Look at Pop getting all huggy with Charles and Coach Van Gundy.
A not-so-happy anniversary Denver Broncos. On this day 24 years ago, the 49ers handed you the worst Super Bowl loss ever, a 55-10 drubbing. That dropped the Broncos to 0-3 all-time in Super Bowls while wearing orange. They won in white and blue. Wilbon, the Broncos will wear orange on Sunday. Your thoughts?
They ought to go back to the uniforms they used to wear in the 70s. I love those uniforms. I loathe these new uniforms. Hate them.
Happy trails to a Nets win. The Nets were up by 1, inbounding the ball with just 12 seconds left. But Darren Williams threw the inbounds pass away to Toronto, and the Raptors' Patrick Patterson made the game winner. The Nets are now 10-0 against United States teams in 2014, 0-2 against Toronto.
You know, the loss is indicative of anything less than. I think the Nets are on to something. I think they could finish 3rd or 4th in the Eastern Conference, Tom, which would put them in pretty good position for the playoffs.
Time to find out what we messed up reality.
Earlier, we had Knicks at the 8 in the Eastern Conference. They're tied for 9th right now. Ooh. And Durant versus Kobe head-to-head. Oh, excuse me, Durant versus LeBron head-to-head, 3-13. And Ron Rivera, 3-year extension with the Panthers.
Ready to go to the big finish? Here we go. Cowboys have hired Scott Linehan to be their passing game coordinator. Does that make sense?
That's like 3 guys who purport to call plays. No, nothing they do makes sense. Tiger says, don't read anything into that 79 on Saturday. I agree with that. You going to comply?
Not yet. There's a 79 on the course. Not yet. LeBron says he wants to have a meeting with Adam Silver to share some of his ideas for the NBA. Should Silver listen to him?
Miami's in the Garden in New York on Saturday for a game. Friday night dinner. Just invite me. Major League Baseball has approved a padded cap for pitchers. Will they wear them, though?
Brandon McCarthy got hit in the head. Says it doesn't work right just yet. He won. I think very few. If it's not mandatory, very few.
Okay.
Last one, Floyd Mayweather, you bought.
Yeah.
Reportedly bet $10.4 million on the Broncos to win the Super Bowl. Too much?
That would affect the whole line. I don't believe he bet $10 million. I know you don't believe it.
I do not. We're out of time. We'll try and do better the next time, and I'm Tony Kornheiser.
$100,000, $250. Okay. I'm Mike Wilbon. Same